Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Halimah and my friend Syafrilla Kurniasi from 7C. We are from Group 7. We would like to present about ASEAN Muslim Diaspora. There are some topics that we're going to discuss. The first is about ASEAN Muslim Diaspora definition, and we're gonna talk about Saffron Dreams novel and how ASEAN Muslim diaspora and identity depiction in this novel. We are also will discuss about scholars' arguments, and we will bring out you the conclusion of all the material. Before we are going to ASEAN Muslim diaspora definition, we will talk about diaspora definition. Diaspora comes from the Greek word dia means through and sparein means to scatter. According to Webster Dictionary, diaspora refers to a dispersion from. While according to Afterbrach, he says that the essence of the diaspora is a journey, where the journey is different from ordinary journey. It must be historical one by moving to a place for a long time. Diaspora embodies a notion of a center, a locus, a home from where the dispersion occurs. And what is ASEAN and Muslim diaspora? ASEAN diaspora means ASEAN people who have immigrated or who have spread from their homeland. And Muslim diaspora is Muslim who have immigrated to or were born in or are expatriates in Western country. Then, from this definition, we can conclude that ASEAN Muslim diaspora is ASEAN Muslim people who immigrated from their homeland in a Western country. Next. We're gonna talk about identity. There are two definitions of identity according to scholars. The first one is, according to Majid et al., identity is the trait, role, feature, social relationship, and social group membership that describe who the individual is. Then, according to Brach, identity is simultaneously subjective and social, and it's constituted in and through culture. Indeed, culture and identity are inextricably linked concepts. There are two famous Muslim identity that appears in society where women use hijab as their identity while men use braids in their face. Next. We are going to talk about Saffron Dreams, written by Shaila Abdullah. Saffron Dreams is the novel that tells the story about Pakistan-American woman named Arisa who struggled to live after her husband's death due to 9/11. The clash of her origin culture and identity with mainstream society led her to have disabled child. This story also tells about evolving identities and the events and places that shaped them. To survive in such society, she assimilates with the culture of mainstream society by putting off her hijab after being targeted of racism and Islamophobia. Next. And how Abdullah depicts ASEAN Muslim diaspora and identity in her novel. According to Johar, Abdullah connects Muslim diaspora and their identities such as hijab to show the relationship between culture, ethnicity, and religion. Saffron Dreams tell the story about Muslim life struggle in Western, especially in America after 9/11 attacks, which destroyed the World Trade Center building. Arisa, the protagonist, becomes one of their victims. Her husband died in that incident. However, especially American extremists, didn't care about it. they consider all Muslims are terrorists. This perception makes it difficult for American Muslim or Muslim immigrant around the US, especially in showing their identity. Moreover, there are some points or quotation from the novel that shows that no that Muslim cannot showing their identity in society. The first one is some women took down their hijab, afraid of being targeted, and adopted a conservative but Western style of dressing. Men cut their beards. A few close, a few close friends changed their names. Salim became Sam. Ali converted to Alan in an attempt to hide identities. And when Arisa talked to her mother to take off her hijab, Ma, I have decided to let go of my hijab. I have given it much thought. It isn't easy for me either. From this quotation, we know that Muslims cannot show their identity freely in society. They even should hide their identity for being acceptable in society. And the last quotation comes from another scene in the novel. The veil that you wear, he continued, pulling out his knife and aiming the point at my hijab. It's all facet. You try to look pure, but you are evil inside. You are the non-believers, not us. This quotation, this quotation tell us that American, especially American extremists, didn't look hijab as a identity of Muslim, but it's a tool that hides something from their self. Okay, next, we are going to talk about scholars' arguments. The first scholars is Hasnul Insani Johar with his paper titled U.S. Muslim Diaspora in Shaila Abdullah's Saffron Dreams. This paper tried to reveal at least 4 points. The first is the intersection of ethnicity, religion, and identity, which can be seen through the way how Arisa is often seen as a foreigner and a threat by the American extremists because of her own faith and identity represented by her hijab. Second is how white Americans, who are frequently portrayed in the media as the victim of 9/11, also act as victimizer by attacking an innocent Muslim woman, Arisa. Then, this paper also tried to reveal the relationship between culture, ethnicity, and religion that can be seen through the way Abdullah connects Muslim diaspora and their identity, the hijab. In this sense, the veil is misunderstood by the white American man as a disguise, as it functions to cover something, which leads fear and prejudice. The last is how Muslim diaspora is often questioned with issues of their faith and identity. By questioning Muslim cultures, this novel shows how Arisa's identity intersects with politics, that her hijab is often associated with the idea of oppression and violence to maintain anti-Muslim racism. Arguably, anti-Muslim racism has remained established in the US because misconceptions of Islam and Muslim women of its hijab have been repeated over and over again in Orientalist discourses and even long before 1978. Next, what this paper tried to challenge, at least there are 4 points. The first is US dominance in representing the Muslim world, especially after the 9/11 attacks, by using the term after US invasion of Iraq instead of after 9/11. The second point is about all demands in false accusation about Islam by depicting Arisa as a heroic Muslim woman who is brave enough. Then Muslim women stereotype they generally assume as voiceless and oppressed by depicting Arisa as an independent, courageous, heroic, and heroic voice who has the power to articulate her own opinion, to defend her own beliefs and ideology. The last point that this paper tried to challenge is the idea of fixed identities of Brah, which tend to be associated with one's origin and one's appearance. Then, this paper find out symbols that used by Abdullah in her novel. At least there are four symbols. The first is knife. Abdullah uses the knife to represent threat and blood, which represent violence, to emphasize how Muslim diaspora in the US lives under the risk to be violated and killed because of anti-Muslim racism, especially after US invasion of Iraq in 2003. The second symbol is ball. This represents a means to hit back at Arisa representing Muslims, who the media frequently report as the perpetrators of 9/11, instead of exposing US invasion of Iraq. The third symbol is hijab. For US as a symbol of the tax supporters and as a symbol for foreign citizens to reveal how dominant society face Islamophobia, especially after US invasion of Iraq. The last symbol is the herd defect. As a symbol of Muslim diaspora, vulnerable identity, and their struggles to find home in the US and question American belonging. And next, scholars' arguments will be presented by my friend Syafrilla Kurniasi.
Okay, so the next research from Saima Majid, Najia Asrazaili, and Zarina Wahid, and their paper is Saffron Dreams, A Journey of Evolving Identity. In their paper, they try to explore the evolving identity of the protagonist. And they say that Saffron Dream as the reflection of America that strive to reveal the mysteries which shroud the history of Pakistani American Muslim women in America through the tale of a trauma and healing in the aftermath of 9/11. And the emotional trauma that Arisa goes through after the 9/11 turns her into a stronger and independent woman. Next, please. And in their paper, they also state that Arisa doesn't conform to the stereotypical notion of a Muslim woman because she is an independent, free-spirited artist who, until her spouse death, oscillates in ecstasy as a multicultural citizen and enjoy amalgam of values, ideas, and more widely the way of life. And the identity crisis he faces in the wake of catastrophic post 9/11 in the United States is driven by her inability to retain the vestiges of her traditional identity in a foreign land, yet being driven back to the odd and comforting vestiges of the homeland and the traditional marital life led by her with her husband. And they also say that it can be stated that the event forms such a juncture with respect to the protagonist's life that it is akin to rebirth in terms of Arisa personality development. And the last, they say that Abdullah draws out the concept that one can turn out to be a survivor from being a sufferer by using all emotional and mental abilities to tackle those circumstances. Next. And the next research from Nur Asia in her paper titled Pakistani American Muslim Women Identity Negotiation as reflected in diaspora literature. In her paper, she stated that Arisa Ilahi, as the main character in the novel, saw how Muslims were discriminated and got oppressed from the society after 9/11, especially Pakistani American Muslim women. And Muslim was regarded as wire puller of this phenomenal event. Not only Muslim men, but Muslim women also got double oppression. And those oppressions happened because most people regarded Muslim as terrorists that attacked and wanted to destroy the country. And there are three different perspectives on society toward Muslim in this situation. Asia introduced the statement from Beverly that three different opinions after the tragedy of 9/11 about Islam is that Islam is a peace, Islam is terror, and dark side of Islam. And after the attack, American people treated Muslim and failed women differently. They have changed their perspective. They are afraid of Muslim doing terrorism. They didn't want to clarify, but made a conclusion as if a failed woman is a terrorist and the religion permits them to kill people. Asia uh, have some her arguments, and first is keeping a mindful identity negotiation. He stated, avoiding trouble in the future is one of the characteristics of conflict management in negotiation, and most of women negotiate through education as it shows their ability to participate in the society. And by having a good education, they will be respected and trusted. It is a part of negotiation, building the trust. And in the novel, Arisa, as an example, is an educated person that tried to negotiate her family about the way to choose a husband, not by agreeing the matchmaker to marry her soon. She tried to get the appropriate man as the best choice for her future. She also showed that by having a good education, she could work and fulfill her daily needs and break the myth by having a good education. And she could break the myth about women are the burden of the family until they are married. And another way of the negotiation is by hiding the real religious identity, such as changing the name to Western. And they made of the story as if they follow American culture to make them safe from the attack. And the second point that she stated, assimilating the culture by working hard. Asia stated that to assimilate the culture, Arisa worked very hard as freelance writer and artist. She believed that no one can change her life without great effort by herself. Next, next. Yes. The third point, she stated that feeling dilemma, facing the dilemma of such a situation, Arisa was confused whether she could keep her appearance or not, and consider insisting her style with the veil, but to be target or taking it off. She has tried to keep her religious identity from tangible wearing veil, but she failed. This condition indicates mindless negotiation. The failure of keeping the veil tended to redesign a new plan in diaspora places. The next point is maintaining a hybrid identity. The ideality that crashed with reality made Arisa confused to face her future life in America. The condition forced her to be a dilemmatic Muslim woman, requiring her whether she had to keep her fundamentalism with the whole identities or she should change her appearances and her mindset in facing the people around her. After getting mockery and oppression from society, she tried to assimilate a new culture, blending her original culture with the Western. Putting off the veil is the way to negotiate her identity, to be respected and don't be blamed by the society. She felt that the burden of her life was lighter. Some people regarded that the way wearing clothes reflect the ideology and political game. Pakistani American women adjusted the way of wearing clothes in difficult time in the society. And the last point that she stated that resisting by keeping the faith by giving the faith and fundamentalism. Arisa succeeded to assimilate the new condition with her ideality. She could get what she dreamed about, wealthy and pride, and unfortunately, she felt that she lost the deepest happiness of her life, the spiritual happiness. Identity can be constructed by the influence of the society. Knowledge and strong religious belief of different people bring the various negotiations. Pakistani American Muslim women changed their negotiation from mindless to mindful negotiation. They got difficulties in adapting to the new culture. One of the most crucial things was about the clothes. Veil as the prominent identity was the problem in the society. Putting on American Muslim style, namely modest dress, is more acceptable than wearing shari veil. Arisa put off her veil and created a hybrid identity by wearing sexy clothes. Speaking in American dialect is another way to overcome language problem, since Arabic name was being one of the religious identities that induced different treatments. Changing them from Arabic language into American style is one of the ways to hide the frankly religious identity because they got oppressions and different treatment aftermaths of 9/11. Arisa met the hybrid building by decorating American building with Arabic nuance. Next, The next paper from Chaudhary, victim or winner, a Muslim widow Saffron Dreams in post 9/11. The condition of a Muslim in his paper, he stated that the condition of a Muslim widow who lost her husband in 9/11 attack, as portrayed in Shaila Abdullah Saffron Dreams, and how she struggled to overcome her personal tragedy to pursue her dream in post 9/11 America, with a special attention to the pros and cons of being a Muslim widow. And he said that widowhood is the most stressful of all life events and requires more physiological and behavioral adjustment than any other life transition. The death of a life partner requires certain alternative patterns of lifestyle so that the survivor can live a satisfactory social and personal life. And apart from the identity transition, widowhood is associated with many other life changing events. Loneliness is a major problem. Again, there are certain perceptions and perceptions which widows from different cultures have to abide by, like loss of status, economic problems, a difficult life influenced by patriarchal and religious dogma, prohibition regarding remarriage, as well as psychological turmoil. But the challenge is faced by widows vary according to their socio-cultural backgrounds. And in his paper, it also said that many incidents have been recorded over the past years of Muslim women being subject to offensive and even physical harmful abuse by those who find their Islamic dress objectionable or think that such clothing is the marker of terrorist activities. Veil or hijab, instead of becoming a symbol controlling their sexuality, personal freedom, and life choices, it marks them as representative of the suspicious, inherently violent terrorist other. But 9/11 also has some positive effects on Muslim American women. As Muslim men largely become the targets of hate crime, they start to taking a lower profile. In such a condition, Muslim women took up the challenge to assert their identity and even their religion, though they were as much as risk as men. The incident shows that amount of hatred the Muslim Americans have to deal with post 9/11, even though they are much victim as the white Americans. This also shows the helplessness of many Muslim American women who had to part with the edge of traditional of the veil simply combat hate crimes. And such a determination of Arisa to live alone with her only child is to help her to finish Faizan incomplete work soul searchers. Thus, Arisa becomes an example to those widows who are not prepared to handle financial responsibilities after her husband's death. She successfully handles every situation after Faizan's death in a country where her own safety was in question, where she had to face additional difficulties because of her Muslim identity instead of the much needed sympathy or support. Next. Next. So to conclude is Asian Muslim diaspora is Asian Muslim who immigrated or spread from their homeland to other countries, especially to big Western countries. Shaila Abdullah, through her Saffron Dreams, tried to connect Muslim diaspora and their identities, such as hijab, to show the relationship between culture, ethnicity, and religion. This novel is an attempt to tell its reader from Muslim women's perspective point of view about the tragedy after 9/11, where not only affect American citizens but also Muslim American as they feel the loss either misconceptions, racism, and prejudice towards Muslims in America. And media participate into it by leading and providing image of Muslims. A Muslim cannot show their identity freely in society. Arisa, the protagonist in the novel, shows that the struggle makes Muslim America or Muslim immigrant should hide their identity from others. Moreover, Arisa also shows that not all Muslim women voiceless and oppressed through her experience faces American extremists around her. This can be also an example for Muslim women out there that they can speak out and stand on their own feet to achieve better life or to survive from tough life. Next. So that's it from our group. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.